You come here for the very best boxing knockouts, and that's exactly what we're going to give you. These are the KOs that will send a chill down your spine. Here's 11 minutes of insane boxing knockouts caught on camera. AIDS. Ain't nothing like a sweet slice of revenge. And after getting embarrassed by Hasim Rahman in their first fight, Lennox Lewis went out there for the rematch and did everything in his power to make the skill difference known. In the end, that resulted in a truly dominant beating and a finish that made any notion of Rahman winning by anything other than a fluke totally wrong. The king had returned, and what a way for him to get his crown back. This was one of those late knockouts we just didn't see coming. Sure, Arthur Abraham was doing pretty damn well up until that point, but he waited until well into the final 30 seconds to get the job done against Jermaine Taylor. And it was a scintillating KO. The straight down the middle totally cut through his opponent's defenses, rendering them useless as the punch's target fell backwards. In the end, he left it until late, but it was certainly worth the wait. On the Mount Rushmore of overhand punch KOs, you really do have to consider this knockout as worthy of a place. Sergio Martinez blasted a part of Paul Williams' soul out of his body with this shot. The impact here was just so loud, and the way Williams slumped to the ground, totally unconscious, was downright scary. Yeah, this was a 10 out of 10 on many, many different levels, folks. On the long list of terrible referee stoppages we've seen across several combat sports, this might just be the worst. And we're not overselling it either. This ref truly made an absolute mockery of his role in the ring here, as the legend Pernell Whitaker was allowed to deliver maybe 4 or 5 fight-ending blows after the fight should have been stopped. Somehow the ref believed that his opponent was intelligently defending himself. But by the time that last blow landed, the way he slid backwards through the ropes, yeah, terrifying. But when his 4th attempt at Manny came, Marquez used everything he'd learned in fights 1, 2, and 3, putting it all to use with one of the greatest one-punch KOs we've ever seen. And with that one shot, he put a bona fide legend on his highlight reel. Picturesque is one word that seems like a fitting way to describe this one-hitter-quitter classic thrown by Carl Froch to totally destroy George Groves in this all-British blockbuster bout. He hit Groves with more force than he'd ever landed on anyone through his entire career. And in the end, this masterful straight punch brought their rivalry to a halt, and it also served as the retirement fight for Froch. What a way to end your career, huh? When the young Jerry Cooney took on the veteran Ken Norton, we knew that the aging legend was getting on in his years. But when Cooney slept him within a minute of the first round, it was enough to make it crystal clear that we had another title contender on our hands. It's not nice to see a legend like Norton go out like this, but it was a star-making performance. Of that, there can be little doubt. One of the wildest 20 seconds of boxing you'll ever see comes in next, as the legendary hard-handed David Tua totally destroyed John Ruiz in the opening 19 seconds of their fight. Tua is, of course, known for his insane punching power, but even by his lofty standards, this was a pretty wild display. He stunned Ruiz on the first major connection to the chin, and from there, it was a matter of ceremony, a mean knockout sequence that totally broke John Ruiz. An absolute demolition job comes in next, courtesy of the great Arturo Gatti. After a strong and dominant round 1, Gatti came out looking extra confident for round 2, and after stalking his prey for a moment, it became clear that everything he was landing was doing considerable damage to his opponent. When he finally exploded 4th, it was a nasty combo that put his man down. And every shot landed seemed to only make things worse for an already beaten fighter. A vicious finish by any metric. This next one is the most poster-worthy KO we've seen in quite some time. Not only did Derek Jefferson find his range with an outstanding power punch that would have KO'd anyone in the entire sport, but the way he both stiffened up his target and knocked the mouthpiece out of their mouth? Yeah, this one gets bonus points in our book. Some KOs are just too good to be true, and this one is definitely a knockout that requires multiple viewings. But to be honest, even after watching that last KO, you could say that Mitchell Smith managed to outdo it with this knockout. These were similar sequences, but we would argue that Mitchell landed with far more intensity and speed. And again, when the mouthpiece went flying, it only just made the whole finish look that bit more sweet. And you know that we're all about the eye test here on this channel. It was a rapid-fire combination that stood as a major statement from its owner. A mean, but highly impressive knockout. Julian Jackson might have been losing to Harold Graham in this bout, but if you know anything about this legend of the sport, you'll know that he is never truly out of a fight. Because Jackson, at his peak, might have been the most powerful puncher pound for pound to ever set foot in the boxing ring. And funnily enough, the commentators here, who were clearly pro Harold Graham, were constantly on edge over the possibility of Jackson snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. And when it finally did happen, they could only sit back and say, "Oh no." Jackson was a ridiculous puncher in his heyday, and this comeback finish showcased exactly why he was so feared during his fighting prime. We've watched Manny Pacquiao get laid out by Marquez already in this video, so it's only fair that we circle back and watch Pac-Man at his destructive best. Because when he fought and totally decimated Ricky Hatton, there might not have been a better boxer on the planet, period. The Pacquiao who broke, they'd have no doubt suffered the same fate as the British legend. A nasty finish if we ever saw one. There was nothing quite like the era of boxing that saw the legendary, and out of those performances, maybe the most impressive of the lot came when Thomas Hearns totally destroyed Roberto Duran in a barrage up against the ropes. Duran just couldn't navigate the length of his adversary, and in the end, he ended up on the Hitman's highlight reel for all eternity, landing the biggest shot of the fight directly on the sweet spot of his opponent's chin. And man, did Jackson fall to the ground. This one hits different because of the context and the aftermath, making it a knockout that the sport of boxing would truly never forget. Emile Griffith finished Benny Paret with a brutal barrage of punches that he seemed to have no answer for. By today's standards, this fight should have been stopped far sooner. But the referee allowed this to go on for too long, and in the end, it cost Paret dearly. He never did regain consciousness after this fight, instead slipping into a coma before passing away at the age of 25, just 10 days later. It was a shocking turn of events, and a cruel reminder of the dangers of this sport. We're not discriminating between weight classes in this video, as you can already tell. And for our money, this uppercut could well have knocked out a man twice the size of its eventual victim. This was a mean finish, a brutal KO that literally came out of nowhere. Shots like that tend to end up on KO of the Year award podiums, and there's an argument to be made that it's among the prettiest knockouts we've featured on this video. Absolutely no need for a follow-up punch here. This was a truly destructive blow. On the long list of one-hitter quitter Mike Tyson howitzers over the years, this brutal first-round KO of Henry Tillman most certainly deserves its mention. This was a remarkably powerful one-punch finish. It was a short fight, but Tyson's pressure was already starting to have an effect on Tillman. And when Iron Mike exploded forth with the fight-ending shot, the impact was pretty tremendous. Prime Tyson just did not hit like a regular human being, and this shot was just about as hard a punch pound for pound as you'll ever see in the squared circle. By any era's standards, Rocky Marciano was not a large heavyweight, but in his hands, he had the type of power that could shatter any jaw on the planet. And on this famous night, he clashed with the great Jersey Joe Walcott in a highly anticipated showdown between two of the division's finest. But in the end, it would be Marciano's uncoachable power that ended Walcott's night. This was a brutal knockout, one that left Jersey Joe slumped up against the cage in a total stupor. There's no surviving a hit like that, folks.